guess I just want to ask the city manager, maybe if you could sketch out what you would like to learn from council tonight.
There was a question of the boards and commissions and what role you might want them to have in these next steps. And then finally on the content of the framework as presented.
So I would suggest we have a roundabout of council comments and questions. And after that, we can get to motions, which may.
If you had to pick sort of one thing to make sure that we get done in addition to all the other stuff, surely it has to be just absolutely sure what happened to George Floyd or Rayshard Brooks or Eric Garner can't happen in Palo Alto.
I'd like to suggest something quite different, a public safety division. They encompass police and fire and emergency services. They all work together. And each one is interchangeable. And I think the great advantage to that is that each one gets a sense of what the other person does. And each one is seen differently by the community.
I held office hours on this topic on Sunday, yesterday. And one of the things that came up is accountability in terms of where does a police report into? Some places actually elect their police chief, and so it's directly accountable to the public. Some actually report into council, some report into, like in our city, to the city manager. And I do wonder if should this role or function report into council instead of city manager.
So much is asked of our police officers, so many roles to perform at one time. I think it's very appropriate for us to look at how can we separate some of these roles.
In addition, there may be areas of lower priority for police to respond to. That's been another area of suggestion among agencies and advocates, as well as questions of areas of domestic disputes. And you're really trying to reduce the frequency of interaction between our armed personnel and situations that don't necessarily call for armed personnel.
We have to dig deeper so that the culture within the department gets changed also.
And so just talking through this a little bit, one, I think the vice mayor touched on something important. There are short-term items that we need to address quickly and effectively. And then there are longer-term, deeper problems, which will take a fair bit of research. A, B, and D are fairly short to medium term, but important. And then I think C and E are really longer-term meaty items that are going to be ongoing for some time.
I think I attended the HRC meeting, and this is one commission that should be larger so that it could be more inclusive and have more people from different backgrounds representing. Members of the HRC really feel strongly on it, but it kind of makes sense to me, especially since we're talking about making it bigger now.
The one that actually leapt out at me was actually C. And I can see that one amounting to quite a bit of work depending on how that goes. That we may need some outside expertise pulled into that one as well.
But one thing I do think it makes absolute sense is much more transparency. We want to make it easy for members of the community to make sure that things are going right. So
Councilmember Tanaka mentioned transparency, and I think that's right. I mean, if you want to make something better, you got to be able to measure it somehow. And so I think
the manager mentioned, this framework is meant to be somewhat of a living process, a living document that we are going to be feeding feedback into it and refreshing as needed. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you all sticking with us until 1:10 a.m. There's a lot of work involved here, but I think there's some short-term things we have to do and some long-term things we really need to do as well. So I hope this captures that.